Hello, you gorgeous teacher. Welcome to the first of two very different episodes from me. I'm on holiday and I decided that I'm not going to do anything on social media, but I will release a couple of episodes just to keep you ticking over and myself as well. Yeah, so what can I say about these two podcasts? They're not really related to teaching. The first one is full of joy and love and inspiration, and the second one is a bit of a rant about that beautiful couple, Rob and Jenny from New English File. It's just a piss take. I wrote it it was probably one of the first things I wrote actually when me and Shane got together and decided to do the podcast. Anyway, so before we start, I just want to thank you for your support and the response from my lexical approach series has been really positive. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please share any posts from my Instagram or Facebook on your stories or feeds. Word of mouth is the best way to make this podcast grow. Also, if you listen to me on iTunes or Spotify, please give me 5 stars. This will change up the algorithm and get me noticed. And if you feel like writing a kind-worded review, I am not going to stop you. Think of it as a little favour for this amazing free content that I'm giving you. Oh, I forgot to say, if you are a new listener, you are most welcome. This is a weird one to be starting on. And if you are a regular listener, as always, you are most welcome. And I really hope you get something positive out of this episode.
RuPaul Drag Race. Gentlemen, start your engine. RuPaul Drag Race. May the best woman win. RuPaul Drag Race. Gentlemen, start your engine. RuPaul Drag Race. May the best woman win.
So, we all need inspiration, guys. We all need positivity in our lives. I think it just helps you thrive. It helps your creativity because it gets you in a better headspace. It just makes you a happier person if you can get inspiration and positivity from different places and things or people that make you feel like you want to be a better person. Do you know what I mean? So, this episode is about RuPaul's Drag Race. I've been watching it for the last few months, so I just decided, I'm just going to stick it on. 18 minutes and 46 seconds in, I was hooked. That was it. So I'm just currently watching all of the series again. I'm on season 11 again. I'm going to probably watch the All-Stars again. I just love it. I can't get enough of it. So anyway, why don't we start with what drag is, okay? Because I think we all have this concept of a drag queen. Like if you think drag queen, you think sort of big hair, long sparkly gown, very, very camp, just real high camp. And yes, in some ways that's what it is, but it's so much more than that. And I've only realised this by watching Drag Race. I'm not going to say it makes me an expert. It doesn't, but I'm just going to give you my idea of what drag is. So it's primarily gay men who use an ingenious combination of wigs, costumes and makeup to create the illusion of a female or femininity. But having said that, some looks can be very androgynous or even sort of freakish and monstrous. It really just depends on the aesthetic of the drag queen. But from watching Drag Race, which I'll get into momentarily, it seems primarily to be like a creative channel, an art form, some form of self-expression. And a lot of these individuals, these drag queens, they come from backgrounds where they weren't accepted. And for them, drag is or was a form of escape. And as RuPaul says, when you get into drag, you don't become somebody else. You become who you really are. So let's just quickly talk about RuPaul. He was born in 1969 in San Diego, and he moved to New York City and he discovered drag, and he became famous in the early 90s for a pretty cheesy single. So I remember seeing her in a magazine or something like that, and I was just mesmerised by how gorgeous she was and how unfair it was that a man could look that good, to be honest. Just absolute real beauty, and confidence. Amazing. So RuPaul's Drag Race, which has been on TV since, I'm going to say 2007, 2008, I think. It's a reality show based on a lot of other reality shows, and there's a group of drag queens, and each week they have to perform some kind of challenge. It's an acting, dancing, singing or design challenge, and they are set these challenges by RuPaul as a man in a suit. And then they complete the challenges. There's a performance or a runway presentation, which is my absolute favourite. But just before the queens stomp down the runway, RuPaul comes out in full glorious drag, making full use of those expensive lights, not seen in season 1. She looks flawless. She looks spectacular and just still fabulous. And along with his panel of guests and regular judges, the queens strut the runway and they inhabit a character. It's really amazing. It's like, do you know what it is? It's the way they move as well. I'm quite mesmerised by it. And you can't even say they necessarily move like a woman, because I've never once walked like a drag queen, although I would absolutely love to just strut down the high street like they do, wearing a big sequin dress. But there's something very fluid and feminine about the way they move that, like, just men just don't really have that fluidity. I don't think that women do. Don't come for me, guys. Don't come for me. This is a positive podcast. And then, in turn, the drag queens are critiqued, and the bottom 2 lip sync for their lives, and then one is eliminated. And then each episode, someone's eliminated, and then one queen is left standing as America's Next Drag Superstar. It's glorious. Really, Erin? Sounds like trash? Well, do you know what? Maybe it is, but it's glorious trash, and it has so much heart. Stay with me, please. Why do I love it? Okay, well, it's got to the point where I can't not watch it. I have to watch it every day, literally every day. It just lifts me up. You know, there's so much artistry and colour and creativity and banter and just fabulosity. It just makes you smile. It gives me something to look forward to every day. And, you know, there are so many interesting aspects to drag. You know, it's essentially a subculture, so you're discovering things about the way the culture works. So, like every kind of industry or vocation or occupation, it has its own language, its own dialect, which of course as a language teacher I find absolutely fascinating. Words like fishy, which means one of those queens who really looks like a woman, really beautiful. If you're gagging, that's you doing any form of strong reaction to something. I was gagging. There's just millions of them, absolutely millions of them. And I love it. And the names, the drag queen names. So, they reflect popular culture, they reflect opulence, they reflect a sense of humour. I'll just give you a few examples. Latrice Royale, Mariah Paris Balenciaga, Kimchi, yes, she's Korean, Jinx Monsoon, Bob the drag queen. I mean, it's endless. It really is endless. And it's brilliant. And there are so many different kinds of drag queens. You know, again, think about the picture you might have in your mind. There's like, you know, the comedy queen, the really high camp queen, the glamour pageant queen, the conceptual art queen. And I love the references and the nods to pop culture. A 50s Dior silhouette here, or a Studio 54 reference there. The show gets more conceptual as the series goes on, and the drag kind of gets elevated, and it's so much fun just spotting all those little cultural references. So, like, you have your eras, yeah? You have your a flapper era, for example. And then you have your designers, you know, a little nod to Alexander McQueen or Moschino from the 90s. And then, of course, you have your big gay icons, you know, Cher, Diana Ross. And then you kind of have your decades, like anything from the 40s to the future. And then you have your film references, you know, like Barbarella and Mahogany. And sometimes you get a combination. And that's why I love the runway, because there's just no end to the creativity. And the outfits, some of them are just absolutely spectacular. I love a feather, I have to say. And, you know, it's just always something new to see. And then there's like the heart, the real heart of this show. It shows the struggles and the dark times. You know, you have to remember that as queer people, you know, and I'm not speaking from experience here. Again, this is just what I've learned. And I'm using the word queer because it's used in the series. And I hope that nobody gets offended by that. But that's the reason I'm using the word. Okay. A lot of queer people have been kicked out of their houses. They've been rejected by their family. And the only family they have is their drag family. And they often talk about drag mothers, which I assume are kind of drag mentors. And then some of them have like a house, so like a house of the House of Davenport. So you've got several drag queens with the same last name, like Sahara Davenport and Kennedy Davenport, and there are many, many more. I think there's Honey Davenport as well. There's a few of them. So there's this real kind of, you know, a really good lesson to be learnt by, you know, you can have family. It doesn't necessarily have to be the one you were born into. Family is, you know, is the people around you and your support system, and everybody needs that. And then, you know, these struggles kind of reflect what RuPaul himself has been through throughout his life, but he is one of those people who's just always had the strength of character to just push himself forward. And he's made a lot of mistakes in life. He had a drug habit and all the rest of it, but he got through it. And that's the point. He got through it. And he always encourages the queens to push themselves and not let themselves get in the way of their own success. And if they don't do well in a task, RuPaul, says, okay, two choices. You pick yourself up or you get inside your head. You have to get out of your head and keep going and give it to me. And I'm learning as I get older that, the main person that's preventing you from succeeding is you. And that, I think, has been very true in my case as well. I've always been quite sort of lax and coasting through, and I've got to a point in life where I want more. And I have to say that I have RuPaul to thank for that partially, I do. And you might think, really, Erin, but he gives very sage advice. He ain't young. He's been there and he's done it. And I think he genuinely cares, and that's why I love him. And then again, you have another funny side. You've got reading, okay? Reading is the drag vernacular for basically just taking the piss out of someone, making fun of someone, but in quite a vicious way, in good humour, apparently. But I think like one of the reasons why they do it is, it is a reminder not to take yourself too seriously, because if you're dishing that out, someone's going to be dishing it back, and that kind of don't take yourself too seriously thing, it kind of seems to be at the heart of drag as well. And it's groundbreaking as well. Where else on TV can you see Black, Latino, Asian queer people, trans people, seeing them as people, just going about, not exactly their daily lives, but you know what I mean. But there's also, overweight queens, there's HIV positive queens, there's queens who've had cancer, queens who knew people in the Pulse shooting in Florida, queens who've been forced to undergo gay conversion therapy, queens that have been rejected, queens whose family don't even know they do drag or they won't accept it, queens who got relentlessly beat up at school or mercilessly bullied. So, thinking about all of that, it's humanising, which I think is, for me, its biggest kind of selling point, for want of a better phrase. It is humanising. People watching this will see these queens as actual people. Imagine. And this gives me perspective. This makes me realise that when I'm having a shitty day, am I really having a shitty day? Like, compared to what some people are going through, have been through, and will continue to go through, it just really gives me a lot of perspective, and I think that's very, very valuable to have. And, I love RuPaul's nuggets of wisdom. Where do I start? He ends each show with, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? And it is so true. And I would argue that the lack of self-worth, self-love, self-respect, is at the root of most behavioural problems. Any kind of insecurity you have about yourself has a danger of transmitting outwardly in a negative fashion. That's just how people are. And it's a constant battle we all face. It doesn't matter whether it's about your appearance, whether it's deep-rooted issues stemming from childhood or trauma. Everybody has insecurities and things they don't like, and it makes you doubt yourself. And the battle is always there for most of us, unless you're a psychopath or, supremely arrogant. But it's something you have to work at every day as well. That little devil on your shoulder, that inner saboteur, as RuPaul calls it, it's never going to go away. It's always going to sit there on your shoulder, but you can choose to tell it to fuck off and listen to that little angel. Okay? You can choose to do that. And it's so easy to attach yourself to the negative, and it's safe not to take risks, and that fear of failure, it's an easy excuse. It can be quite crippling. But I feel myself pushing myself forward more now, because I don't think I have any excuse not to. And it's a really exciting, powerful feeling once you get into that frame of mind and you're focused on something like I'm pushing myself forward. It's a very powerful feeling. And I encourage you to explore that. In fact, I encourage you to watch RuPaul's Drag Race. So going back to that initial question, what is drag? It is glamour. It's joy, it's fabulous, it's performative, it's an illusion, it's comedy, it's culture, it's high fashion, it's a reminder not to take life too seriously, it's political, it's conceptual, it's opulence, It's acceptance, it's power, it's everything. So just remember, guys, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else?